Hello and welcome back to Everything Wrong with the World. I am Skylar Tortajada. This is my podcast where we talk about current events, political events, and such. And lately we've been talking about a bunch of different things and different topics where looking back at the episodes that didn't do so well, I wish that I would have researched more just so that I could give more information. And I'm not saying that I completely researched this next topic because it's a broader one, and I was just trying to get an understanding of it, and I think I tried that with this. So this week, what I have tried, so that I could get a better understanding and give everybody listening who doesn't have an understanding of the topic a better understanding, I looked up a source to reference, maybe read through a little bit. I don't think we're going to be spending a lot of time with this, but just to say that I've read through this and learned a little bit more about the topic than I have in the past, so that I can maybe give a more well-rounded view of it. So, today, what we are talking about is taxes. With tax season in April coming up, a lot of people are worrying about, stressing about taxes. Your parents probably getting their papers together, or you are if you're someone who's of age to worry about taxes, I guess. But, so everybody has heard about people starting to get their taxes together. So what I have is an article here by NerdWallet, which is a financing and tax filing application, and they published an article, and this is basically just an overview of the different tax systems and tax brackets and stuff you could do with your tax return. This article, in case you want to learn more about this topic, if you're a kid who doesn't know a lot about it, this article will be linked in the description of this video. So down there, that's where the article is. You can find it, you can look at it, or you could just Google different things. Google is so awesome. You can just Google anything, and then there's answers out there. It's such a good tool. I know we're not technically supposed to use Google for class projects and stuff. It's not a scholarly source, but at the same time, it's you have all this information at your fingertips. So if you're wondering about anything, use it. So that's not part of the actual topic, but speaking of learning stuff about taxes, I feel a lot of the time, kids, especially I've heard kids be oh my God, we never learn about taxes. We only learn stupid stuff science and social studies and whatever, but we don't actually learn about taxes or stuff that's useful to us in life. But I feel in some schools, maybe they don't, but in our school, there is a mandatory personal finance class where I'm sure you learn a little bit and touch on it. Of course, it's better to get a deeper understanding of it yourself, and that should be a more mandatory thing. But as far as that goes, there are, once you get to that stage where you're taking personal finance and things like that, you are learning more about the real stuff and taxes. And so it's always everybody's first move to be the school system is bad, I hate school, because everybody does hate school, so it's why not blame them? But we do learn a little bit about taxes in school. We take a mandatory class, but we don't really go in depth, or I haven't taken the class, but what a lot of the times in talking about taxes in general, we don't always go fully in depth about income and how it's income taxes, but how that kind of affects it and how the people in the different tax brackets and things like that. So today we're going to be talking more about that, about how taxes affect the poor, how they affect the rich, how they affect the lower, mid, and upper middle class, kind of that range of things of how taxes are affecting everybody with the presidential debates, the presidential debates happening and coming up with the Democratic candidates. There's a lot of people talking about different things with taxes. So I just wanted to kind of talk about, I felt like it was timely with tax season coming up, everything to do around taxes, kind of jump around with it, but try to make it not too confusing. So as the article states, this year there are 7 different tax brackets for taxes of people. So there's a 10% bracket, a 12% bracket, a 22% bracket, a 24% bracket, a 32% bracket, a 35% bracket, and a 37% bracket. And there's a little chart here that explains that these brackets are they're determined by, obviously, if you know about taxes even a little bit, you know that the less money you make, the smaller a rate of taxes it is, and the more money you make, the higher a rate of taxes it's supposed to be. But we'll get into that in a second. So, the first rate, the 10%, that's really low, but it's only for people who make really, really low incomes. And I feel like that's the thing that a lot of people talk about, where they're like, oh, poor people should pay the same amount of taxes we're paying for them, and they're stealing from the government when they take financial aid and everything. But they're really not. I consistently talk about poor and rich and and how different groups are affected, and get really intense on that aspect of it. But I feel like it's something important. Poor people aren't poor because they want to be poor. So it's don't persecute people for being poor. Don't say that they're taking something away from you because they're seeking aid from their government. That doesn't work. But if you are making a lot of money, there's a certain amount of money that you can live off of. Some people make under that, and they're still taxed. They're still taxed on their taxable income, and it's they're only making the bare minimum. But then there's other people who are complaining, who are making 10 times what they need to sustain life, but they're complaining that they have to pay a higher percentage of taxes. But I mean, there's validity there, because I feel like the rates, if you're making more money, then if the rate stays the same, you're paying more money, which makes a little bit more sense. That's how I thought it worked, but apparently it doesn't, as you make more money. But the highest bracket at 37% is $510,301 or more in taxable income yearly. And I feel like that's a lot. So that's valid. Not valid, but I don't know what the right word is. It's reasonable to tax like that, I would say. Because some people have so much money, and it's you don't need that much money. What are you doing with it? That's But with tax season coming up, then everybody gets tax returns or tax refunds, which is if you paid too much money throughout the year, they give it back to you. So you can get your tax return, and if you have a high rate of taxes, then you can get a big tax return. Taxable income. There's all information about taxes here, and the brackets are even vague. If I'm looking at a diagram here, if you're in the 12% bracket, then part of it gets taxed 10%, and it's all just a bunch of jargon. I don't know if that's the right word. It's just a bunch of it's a whole mess of random stuff, random confusing stuff. But what most people talk about when they talk about taxes is about the millionaires, billionaires, gazillionaires that don't pay taxes, that just become richer and richer every year and aren't giving back, because there's write-offs on your taxes. So there's dependents. So there's if you have to have the extra money to support kids, your parents have you as dependents on their taxes, because they have to support you financially. So they pay less because they have the extra dependents. And then if you can write off some things on your taxes. So like if you have to buy a car for work, then you can say, oh, this car was for work, so you can't tax me on it because I needed it for my job, blah, 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 and all that stuff. But with all these write-offs and loopholes and ways to pay less, people like big names like, I forget the guy's name, but like the millionaires, the billionaires, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. Is Bill Gates still alive? I don't know. My point is, there are these big names, big people who just don't pay taxes. Whether it's they get out of paying taxes for their multi-million-dollar corporations, or they get around paying taxes for themselves. And since the government is run by all these types of people that are like that are super mega rich and have like these like huge amounts of money that no one would ever need, they just turn a blind eye to that. And that's what frustrates a lot of people, because it's like this guy is making like millions and billions of dollars a year. What's 10 or not 10? Let's go all the way up to the top and say 37% of that. Like what, to someone who makes millions of dollars a year, 37% of that, that's still a huge amount of money. Like, it's still unreasonably large. It's still like you would never need that much money. But yet they don't pay it. Like, they get around it and everything because they want that extra 37% for whatever makes them think that they need that much money in the first place. But it's like they don't even pay that. Like, I've read things where people, like, some of them don't pay any taxes at all. And they just, like, get off with that, like, or like 1% on their taxable income. And it's like, that's an issue there, because that person is making so much money, that person is taking up so much of the economy, and then it's not feeding back. And then the people, and then when politicians say, oh, we don't have enough money, we need to raise taxes because no one's, we need more money from taxes, then the taxes of the poor people who are making the bare minimum that they're able to survive off of are more heavily taxed. And then they have to pay more just so that they and their neighbors and their fellow citizens can stay afloat. But then these other people are just living large, doing whatever they want because they have an in or they have a loophole that they use. And so, that's a big issue. And a lot of people complain about taxes because taxes, in New Jersey, taxes are high, property taxes are high. There's all that. It's different. The states that you go to and everything, everybody will have their own different take on it. But a lot of people, like, obviously they don't want higher taxes because they have to pay taxes every year. But then these new politicians are coming in and saying, or certain politicians, like Bernie Sanders, he wants universal health care. And the way to get universal health care, you can't get the money from nowhere. You have to get it from taxpayer dollars because it's provided by the state, and the state gets money, the state meaning the government, and the state gets money from the people paying taxes. It's the only way the state makes money. And I was talking about this with someone yesterday, and she was like, Bernie Sanders wants to raise all these taxes for people so that they can get health care. And then this other girl was like, well, how else would they pay for health care? Like, people are dying because they can't afford the medicine that they need because they're not getting health care, which is an important point. But the other side of the argument, what this girl was saying, is that these people, there's like different parts of the other side of the argument. Basically what people say is like, we shouldn't be paying for other people's health care. Like, the higher up that have the money shouldn't be paying for other people's health care. But this girl was like, well, they're going to be paying for it anyway because the taxes are going to get higher. But people who need financial aid and make such a low income aren't taxed as heavily. So even when the tax is raised, they're being raised more up top, like up at the people above them. And a lot of people think that's really bad. They think the people above should not be paying for and supporting financially the people under them with their taxpayer dollars. Which I understand where that's coming from. Like, I understand that it's not always, like, just be selfless and just help everyone, because life isn't like that. Like, sometimes people need to look out for themselves. Some people want to look out for themselves. Sometimes selflessness isn't the first thought. However, my personal view is that that's what we need to do, because we can't just raise taxes on these poor people. We can't just expect these poor people to be able to pay for health care or yada yada or whatever. Like, we need to raise taxes for the rich who are barely paying taxes so that these other people, like, don't die because they need health care. That is a whole other, like, political thing of the whole healthcare argument and everything. But basically, what I'm trying to touch on around that is all these different presidential candidates, everything that they say they're going to do with taxes. Everyone wants to hear that taxes are going to be lowered. Some people, we hear that sometimes. Sometimes we hear they're going to be a little higher, but I'm going to give you this, this, and this. Sometimes we hear, well, they're going to say kind of the same in this group, blah, 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 blah. I think that we need a whole rearrangement of the system, because whatever we're doing isn't working for everyone. Again, it's working for the top 1% because it's created by the top 1%, the top 10%, whatever. That makes up such a small amount of the population, but is being completely benefited and completely, like, the money is just feeding up and up and up, and the middle class is shrinking. And I'm sure you've heard all this before of how I think we just need to rearrange the system, because however it's going right now isn't working, because the poor are getting poorer and the rich are getting richer, and that's just not okay. And what taxes are, I'm just a kid, but this is my understanding of it, is that the government takes in money so that they can redistribute it in a way that's effective for the economy and for the protection of the people, for making the government for the people and everything, like redistributing the money so that in a way that's beneficial to all the people. But sometimes we need to focus on certain groups. Like, obviously we don't need to redistribute the money back to the rich, because the rich aren't the people who need it. Sometimes the greater good is giving some people more than others because that's what they need right now. And it's like, again, like, it's easy to say, oh, just be selfless, just give everything you have and just make everything equal or whatever. I don't know if that's socialism or communism or what it is, but it's easy to say, like, just, like, spread the wealth. But also at the same time, like, I understand that scares some people, because they're like, well, I work hard for my money and I want to keep it. But at the same time, other people are working hard, but they have the lack of opportunity and everything, and they have everything fighting against them. So I feel like it's easy to say be selfless and, you know, give money to the poor and everything. It's harder in action, and it's extremely hard in action when we are in a time where the tax and economy system is just so clogged up and crappy. But I feel like maybe we'll get the right person in to reform the system, you know, in the next couple years, the next couple elections. You never know. But it's important to keep in mind, just, you know, think of those other people at all the different levels. Think about everything that's going on. If you're a kid, think about and research all these different things with finances, with the economy, because one day it will be affecting us. And, you know, we could step in, we could give our opinions, never stop, like, sharing and trying and doing whatever you can. But good luck this tax season. Hopefully your parents, or you, if you're filing, stay sane. Have fun with it. Research, stay curious. That is from the Amoeba Sisters, but I feel like it applies. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening and everything. Hopefully we can get more of a rapport going as the episodes go on with the show. Make it more interesting. Let me know topics. Let me know opinions. Let me know feedback. Thank you for everyone who has given me feedback. And just thank you for watching. So tune in next week, next Wednesday.